play a game.
This is the emergency podcast system. This is not a test. Movies are bombing all over the country. They are posing as movies you already know. They may already be in your theaters, your neighbor's home, or even your own. Do not panic. Specialists have been dispatched. They will help you identify these pretenders and defend you against this invasion of the remake. Please stand by for further instructions.
Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast, and welcome to the game. This is finally it. It is the 31 Days of Horror episode, all October long. Sam Stepanenko.
Hello.
And Trish Coughlin.
Bonjour.
And myself watched 31 movies in 31 days of
That's
October each
Yes.
that we have never seen before. That was the challenge. And we're going to tell you all about that today.
Yes.
No remakes. Well,
Nope.
there might be some on our lists, but not our usual fare. We did this last year. We had a lot of fun with that conversations. We're doing it again this year. And we are happy to see a bunch of you follow along with us. And we
Yay.
are going to read a couple of those lists on the air today as well.
Yay.
Yes.
It's nice to know that the cult is growing.
And they're brave souls, because
They are.
It's funny, because we watched more than 31 horrors, right?
Yeah,
'Cause-
I actually did 32.
yeah. Aside from, we watched two that I've already seen before because we watched them for the show.
Yeah. Oh, I
And
guess
then-
I watched more than that because they have to be something I haven't seen.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I didn't count them on the lists if I'd seen them, and we did horror all month long.
Yeah, so there were a few extras, a few bonus ones in there for us.
Yeah.
And then I count 31 and a half because I saw half of one that I hadn't seen, but I don't count it as a whole one because I didn't watch it from the beginning.
I'm at 32 and a half.
Nice.
So-
Nice. And Sam, while we were waiting for you to arrive, he said he's still not out of the mode.
Which is frightening.
It's frightening.
No, it's true.
I went straight into the first couple episodes of Stranger Things, and I'm like, I don't want to watch any more television at all. And I've been reading all week.
Nice.
Just throw on some music, and I've just been reading. It's been good.
Nice.
I've been playing a lot of video games.
I
I've
tapped
not
out.
been watching that much lately.
I've been catching up on a few sitcoms. I caught up on Brooklyn Nine-Nine
Yeah.
because I just needed that break.
I figure I'm still at least another week of reading before I start diving into anything else. Maybe I'll finish Stranger Things along the way, but that damn show derailed one of our 31 Days of Horror.
They
people as
did.
well.
I was really sad to see that because she was really, really active in participating with our posts on social media.
Yes,
Right,
at Paige,
yeah.
Paig.
Yeah, or horror page. She
Horror
calls herself.
Page,
Yeah.
yes,
But,
Horror Page.
but
And
certain,
she's done it 2-3 years in a
this is
row.
her second. I believe this is her second year of actually documenting it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
And-
wish some of my old stuff from the MySpace days was still there, but yeah, I started doing this. I got to be getting close to 15 years.
Yeah, somewhere around there
Wow.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, go check out what she's done. What she did accomplish because she made a good go of it. So yeah, it's at Paige on Twitter.
Yeah, and I think she tapped out around 26 before she got sucked into Stranger Things.
That's sizable.
That's pretty good. That's pretty
Yeah.
good. And, Stranger Things kind of counts. I mean, it's a series. So it kind of breaks the rules.
Kind of breaks our rules, but
Yeah.
it may not have broken hers.
That's right.
Yeah.
So good on you, Paige, for at least giving it a go, and hopefully next year
Yeah.
there's nothing in there to sidetrack you.
Yeah.
Yeah, not season 3 of Stranger Things. Thanks for participating with us on our Twitter feeds as we were tweeting out, me and Sam and Trish
I did
occasionally.
some Twitter. Yeah, I'm a bad tweeter. I'm a non-Twitterer.
And I pretty much annoyed all my Facebook friends as well by doing it to them, even though I never reposted it on our invasion page.
Well, that's good because now it's a surprise to everybody who only sees that page.
That's right.
Because we certainly have a lot more listeners than social media followers.
Yes.
So this will be a surprise to most of you, but those of you who did follow, you probably got a sampling. But yeah, we've got a whole bunch of really good stuff to share with you today.
Yes.
Absolutely. And we're going to try to figure out some patterns that formed. Like last year, we had some patterns formed, and
Yep.
I wound up watching several films with a blind lead character, which was very weird. Or blind or deaf.
Yes.
Mostly deaf, actually. It was mainly deaf people.
Yeah.
That was a weird trend. And we're going to see what forms in here this year. I certainly found myself watching a lot of indie horrors last year, and it did start that way again this year, but then there was this weird kind of coalescing where I was just, I want something lighter, and then I wound up for like 10 days. It was like horror comedies.
Oh, yeah. You got to break it up somehow.
Yeah, but I didn't do it right. I did them all at once.
Yeah, I did a good job of mixing mine in there. When I started to feel that burnout, I switched to a horror comedy. Then I think I had a couple days where I was watching horror comedies and back into the darker stuff.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I really hit some dark stuff this year.
Yeah.
So,
I gotta say, I didn't even come close to hitting all the stuff that I had made mental notes of watching. I didn't even scratch the surface of all the stuff that I wanted to check out. There's so much good horror coming out of the last few years, and with the stuff I didn't get to see in from the past either. It's not always modern horror; it could be old horror. I've got a little bit in my list.
as do I. Yeah.
Me too.
So
I ruined one for you. I'm sorry.
I don't remember what it was, so
Which
it's
one?
okay.
Yeah,
I've already forgotten. We'll get mention
We'll
it when
get
we
to
get
it.
there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll start off with our top 8, as we did last year. It'll actually work out pretty good, because I did 32, so 8, 8, and 8, and 8. If you did 31, then we'll end with 7. But
Oh well, we can always count our halves too, right? Or
Yeah.
not count our halves.
yes, well,
I'll semi-count my half.
I also have an abort.
Yes, your first one ever.
My first one ever in
Yeah.
doing this for as many times as I have. So I
Well-
usually stick them through, but damn, bad is bad.
Yeah, true. And that's the thing. Like, when you're talking 31 horror movies and you consider how many hours this occupies,
Yeah.
you gotta really be able to put in an abort if you have to.
Yeah,
'cause-
and let's face it, we watch a lot of crap for this show.
yes.
And for this time around, I'm like, I don't have to take it. I don't have to do this.
You have a choice.
I have a choice. I don't have time to suffer through this.
Yeah.
Let's go find something else.
This is you. You're consenting to yourself.
Right?
You should be able to say no.
I can say no. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I remember when I saw his Facebook post. I think it was your Facebook or Twitter, one of the two. I'm like,
Yeah.
you had your first abort, and I jump on my phone and text him right away. That must have been bad.
Because we can power through some shit.
We have seen some shit.
Yep.
We have seen some awful, awful shit. Okay, 31 Days of Horror 2017. I'm going to start off with my top 8. My first one was an indie horror by writer-director Mark Fratto called Hellfire. This basically was a bunch of shitty women who kidnapped this dude who turns out to be the Antichrist and influences them in ways to kill them off and turn some into zombies and that sort of thing. He hasn't got full control over what he's doing, and he's trying to influence some of them to help take the returning Jesus or whatever off the planet as well. And it's got a nice twist. It's very well written. It's got a kind of a Kevin Smithy kind of dialogue to it. Unfortunately, Mark Fratto's directing doesn't match his writing. I swear to God, an extra $200-$300 would have got you a better lighting package and a camera. Maybe you should check to see if it actually can focus.
And do dailies.
I
Yeah.
mean, the cinematography on this is just abysmal. It's so awful, but the writing was so strong that it kept me going through. And it's a fun movie for the most part if you can get through some of the bad.
If you can look to the
cinematography.
personality of the movie rather than what it looks like.
Yeah, so it wasn't the greatest start for me, but it's fun nonetheless. And
Nice.
there's some good gore scenes. There was a couple of times I'm like, oh, damn!
Oh.
Yeah. So, pretty good. And it starred J. Scott Green, Caitlin Mary Marshall, and Celine Beretta. I've never heard of any of these people. Maybe a few of them I think we will see again down the road. So there's some pretty decent performances in here
Nice.
for young actors. My number 2 was a manga turned anime turned live action and then adapted by Americans to Netflix, called Death Note.
Okay, there we go.
There's the traffic there for you. So I've been familiar with Death Note a little bit. I mean, we carry the manga in my shop, Words and Pictures, here in Calgary, and I've seen a little bit of the anime on Netflix, and believe it or not, I've actually seen some of the live action movies that have been produced out of Japan as well. So this was an American version of the Death Note idea, and I know the anime guys just fucking hated this movie, but I'd only had enough exposure to go, not bad. You know, I think they got the look and feel of it pretty good. The demon in the movie was voiced by Willem Dafoe.
Ooh.
That's always a
was
selling
cool.
point.
Yeah. I think Nat Wolff did a pretty good job with it, and the screenplay was adapted by Charlie's... Oh my god, what a name on here. Parla Panad... Yes, and I'm assuming his sibling Vlas. They worked on Immortals, which is not a great movie to be talking about. Also co-written with Jeremy Slater, who did the 2015 Fantastic Four movie.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was directed by Adam Wingard, who did a short in VHS and also directed You're Next, which I think you covered,
good.
Sam, last year.
That's
No,
a
this
good
year.
movie.
This year?
Yeah.
Oh, was it this year?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's on my
cool. We're
list.
gonna talk about
I
it later.
watched it last year, but I don't think I covered it.
So I think Adam Wingard's a pretty decent director, and for a Netflix original, I quite enjoyed it for what it was. I didn't think it was fantastic. I certainly have been enjoying the anime more, so maybe it's because the anime just takes its time to tell this story. They're doing it in 100 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, yeah.
you know, in horror in general, that's the one thing about horror in general. I wound up a lot of the times doing a couple a night because they're short. Hour and a half is kind of average for most horror movies.
Yeah, I wasn't so lucky. Quite a few of mine were pushing the 2 hour mark, and there's one that was almost 2.5 hours.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
We'll get to that near the end.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that one's... That one,
I think I know which
I think
one you're
that's my
talking about.
half.
No, that one was close too, though.
My number 3 was Cult of Chucky. I'm a big fan of the Chucky movies. Trish and I did talk about Chucky a bit in our slasher episode.
Yep.
That was just going to be a given. I think I watched it the day it arrived in my mailbox from Amazon, so which
Yeah.
was day of release, and I was pretty happy with it. It's a direct continuation from Curse of Chucky, and bringing most of those characters back. Was quite amazed at how many references it does to its own past and how many actors show up from previous Chucky movies in here. Some they've grown so old that I had trouble remembering them, but there's some pretty cool stuff in there, and it's brought back by writer, director, and creator of Chucky, Don Mancini. Got to say, Fiona Dorff has done a good job taking over in this cycle.
And that's what our crossover is. I have that as well.
Yes, and Brad Dourif, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts a little bit later
Yeah.
on. So, you know, the family line of Chucky, and I'm interested to see how this is going to adapt, especially the way that movie had ended.
Yeah, I don't know.
going in some weird
before we get to
places.
mine, but what I'm saying is, like, man, I want it to, like, just pick up right where it left off. I was very excited.
Yeah, and this one
movie.
kind of did from the last one, so that was nice, where they had that post-credit scene in Curse of Chucky, and it was the kid from the original film all grown up and had Chucky's number.
And then this one has a post credit as well.
This one's got a post-credit as well, so I guess there's going to be more.
Oh, please. I love this direction. I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting to see where this is going. My number 4 was The Girl with All the Gifts, and I got to say that was the winner for the week.
Nice.
That was definitely my favorite. From 2016, it was directed by Colm McCarthy, based on a novel by a graphic novel writer, Mike Carey. That was also what attracted me to it. Mike Carey, I've liked a lot of his comic books in the past. And this one was pretty cool. It was about a little girl zombie, like a zombie hybrid. And it opens kind of in this military camp where they're trying to teach them. And it's not a traditional zombie movie in the sense where the kids are kind of normal until there's blood involved or something. They get that whiff of blood and then they just turn feral. And she holds what might be the possible cure for this outbreak that has pretty much destroyed the world. So it's these small encampments that are working on this cure. And as the base gets overrun, they have to take her out and try to usher to her another site and try to keep her from biting them, as well as getting bitten by all the shit that's around them as well. It's got a nice twist ending to it, and it's got a nice commentary on maybe this is the next evolution.
Well, the UK has done a lot of different stuff with zombies. They're not just taking your regular zombies anymore.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. It was a US-UK joint, and I highly, highly recommend this one. That was my favorite of the week for sure.
Yeah, it was on my list this year as well, but because I saw you'd watched it, I'm like, I can wait. I mean, it was on my list last year, but it was just in theaters, and I didn't get a chance to see it. Or had just been released, and I didn't get a chance to see it. And then this year I was on my list, and then Jay watched. I'm like, you know what? I can wait another year, I guess.
Yeah. In some of these, to avoid crossover, I didn't do them, but there's ones that I wanted to watch so badly. I'm like, no, we're going to cross over.
And I have a couple of those, as well, but very few of them.
And this week in general was really strong for me. My number 5, and I know Sam watched this as well, is The Devil's Candy. And we've talked about in the past these voices in horror that are popping up, and who the next generation of them that might be the new masters of horror. And Sean Byrne is one of them.
Oh, yes. Abso-fucking-lutely.
100%.
And it's unfortunate I couldn't find my old notes for when I did The Loved Ones for a previous 31 Days of Horror Challenge, but another movie I really loved. That alone was kind of like, okay, Sean Byrne, I like The Loved Ones, let's check this out. And then I saw who was in it with Ethan Embry. He was basically the main thing that kind of attracted me to this movie. I'm like, oh, I did get Ethan Embry, and he's kind of unrecognizable from the Ethan Embry I've seen in the past. He looked so good.
He's ripped, and the long hair just really suits him really well.
Yeah, for a guy who's got no hair at all anymore.
Yeah, I saw the trailer, and it took me till the end, like Ethan Embry. I'm like, wait, I had to rewind the trailer because I didn't even know it was him in the trailer.
Yeah, I got to say this was really interesting. It was more of a serial killer thriller kind of thing, and it's this child murderer trying to silence these demonic voices, but Ethan Embry's also hearing them as well. It was a really cool idea of this battling of psychosis.
And really well executed. And if you're a fan of The Loved Ones, if you haven't seen The Loved Ones, go fucking check that movie out. But if you're
you have,
all over my first week.
Sorry. If you have, you'll really dig this as well. And Sam's going to probably second this when he reads his list. My number 6, another fucking great movie called The Green Room. And it was written and directed by Jeremy Saulnier. Starred, it might have been one of the last movies of Anton Yelchin as well. Anton Yelchin, Imogen Poots, and Patrick Stewart. And this one's like an exercise of intensity. It is quite a stellar performance, a stellar movie, and an exercise in tension.
Yeah, I've only seen the first probably 35, 40 minutes of it because my wife couldn't stand the intensity of it. She made me turn it off. Right. And I've just never got a chance to go back to it because it did make me uncomfortable too.
Yeah. And even more so now with some of the heightening racial tensions again, and in this club called the Green Room, and there's lots of neo-Nazis who've trapped these guys who've basically watched a murder happen, and now these guys are deciding what to do with this band that witnessed this murder, and they just wanted to play a gig.
Gig from hell.
And it was a gig from hell, for sure. And fuck me, was it intense.
It was on my list to kind of do, but I don't feel I felt emotionally ready to commit to watching The Green Room.
You have to be in a very specific mindset to make it through that movie without being, like, wanting to have to turn it off.
There was no wanting to turn that one off. It had me glued to the screen. Granted, I think I was hugging myself by the end. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. I'm never leaving my house again.
Yeah. It's funny. That movie reminded me of something that happened to you and I.
Yeah.
Because it was actually a very frighteningly similar experience. Fortunately, it wasn't as intense.
Yes, because none of us died.
Right? None of us were seriously harmed. But yeah, the first time we went out with a friend of ours, the first time I had gone out with this friend of ours, we ended up at a punk show.
Yeah, and it turned out a bunch of skinheads and neo-Nazis turned up, and our group was very multicultural. That didn't sit well with me, especially when we saw this giant of a man walk in, like we're talking huge bodybuilder type, with this white shirt that said, in black letters, white power on it. And I'm like, we need to go and get our black and Asian friends out of here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it felt very similar. Like when I did what I did see, was like I kept thinking of that experience, right?
Yeah,
and how it could have gone wrong.
Yeah,
not as badly wrong as it did.
Yeah,
in the movie,
in our
but
experience, me and one of our friends had their head thrown through a car window. That was the most violent thing that happened. I got chased all the way to the car by I don't know, about 10 guys.
Yeah, it was about that many. Yeah, we had to jump into a moving car.
Yeah, and we bolted. But oh my god! So I'm like, watching this movie, I'm like, yeah, I could not get that thing out of my mind and how badly it could have gone for us as well.
Yeah. It was very much a reminder of a personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
Yeah. So after that, I wanted something a little lighter.
No kidding.
Yeah, you should.
For now, my number 7 was All Cheerleaders Die. This is actually a remake of Lucky McKee's movie. He had made it previously, just really low budget while he was still in freaking high school. It was really hard to find. We'll probably never wind up covering it unless Lucky sends me a copy. And which is maybe possible, because he did interact with me on Twitter when I watched this movie, which was great. If you're not familiar with him, he directed and wrote The Woman and May. I highly recommend those movies as well, along with Chris Sivertson, who also wrote the original of this and also wrote I Know Who Killed Me. The original was 2001, this one's 2013, and it was the same director as the first go-around. It starred Sidney Allison, Caitlin Stacey, Siona Smith-McPhee. Basically, it's a bunch of cheerleaders that get killed and come back with some powers, and it's fun.
Nice.
It's fun. It's about kind of revenge and dealing with some of that high school stuff from a high school perspective, and body shaming and all sorts of things are covered in here. But in general, it's just fun.
Nice.
I really enjoyed it, and I think I tweeted Lucky afterwards. I'm like, are we getting another one? I want more. This was fun. I want more. If he's listening, I want more.
Some nice John Hughes horror.
And number 8, I actually watched for our slasher episode, and then I don't think I wound up talking about it.
Oh.
And it was from 1981, called The Burning.
Oh, yes.
And it was written and directed by Tony Malum, and as well as a story by Weinstein. It was actually one of the first things written by Harvey Weinstein. I didn't know. It would be days later after I watched this, all that shit would start happening, and I'm like, oh man, I would have never watched that if I knew that was coming.
I know.
So yeah, fuck you, Harvey Weinstein.
I may unfortunately have some stuff that's in there.
And also written by Brad Gray. The screenplay was Bob Weinstein and Peter Lawrence. It was kind of traditional slasher fare. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was great, but lots of early appearances from famous actors now. Jason Alexander, Fisher Stevens, Holly Hunter, all made their appearances in this movie. It's a slow burn, but I really liked it. No pun intended for the burnings, but it's actually pretty solid. It's like, I enjoyed it, and it was kind of slow, but next thing I knew, it was over at the same time. So I quite enjoyed it for the most part. It was a fairly traditional in the camp kind of story, but I dug it. I would recommend that, especially if you're a fan of like the Friday the 13th type slashers. Mm-hmm. And that was my top 8.
Nice.
So overall,
strong
I'd say
week.
it was a very strong opening week, and it really set a nice pace, and I wish I could say that pace kept going, but it didn't. But overall, I think the month in general was pretty decent. Like, I don't think I really watched anything and just came out hating it. So, good first week.
Nice.
So, Trish.
Me! Yay! Okay. I didn't go as much detail as you did.
We never
I was sort
do.
of doing impressions on what I had.
Are you going to do impressions?
No. My impression of what I saw.
Oh, it sounded better
I can't
the first
do
time.
impressions. Sorry. Sorry. You've heard my impressions. They're not great.
Do it, it's David Bowie.
Oh, God.
That's going to be a no. Okay.
Can't do it. Okay, my first movie, I came across this. It was just easy to get to, and I just wanted something. I'm like, let's just lay this out with something kind of dumb where teenagers die, called Bedeviled. And it's one, like, there's this app on this phone that, like, it's like if Siri became possessed, essentially, is what happens.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
That does sound like fun.
Yeah, and it sort of kills people, like, based on, like, their worst fears. Mm-hmm. There's actually an interesting one where there's, like, a black guy in this movie, and, like, one of his fears is, like, just people misinterpreting him as, like, being a dangerous black man, like, in public, like white people. And I'm like, oh, good, like, that was really clever. But I'm like, what would this demon ever do with my fears of intimacy and love? Kind of curious. So, but it was actually quite a lot of fun, and I did quite enjoy it. It was one of those ones, like, when a lot of these movies they have with, like, phones and apps and stuff, they kind of turn out like shit. This was better than most of the ones I've seen that do that. So there's that. The second movie I watched was Bye Bye Man. Not great.
That movie was based on I listened to some paranormal podcasts. No. This guy this guy decided to make a movie of a story that was recounted to him. Granted, it doesn't sound like the movie bears a lot of resemblance to the story itself.
Oh, tell me what it is and I'll tell you.
He said something about this creature with a bunch of eyes, like it's formed of eyes, and if you even think about it, his way why he had this movie made was so the Bye Bye Man might be distracted by all the people who watch the movie and won't come for him. Like, it's actually some sort of urban myth.
Oh yeah, like it has a whole thing. Don't think it, don't say it, don't.
Yeah,
and I don't know. The most unbelievable part of this movie was how 3 students afforded a house this size.
I've asked that question about movies myself.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a creepy old house, and it seems kind of cool, but I'm like, you guys can't afford to live there. It's just not good. Had Carrie Ann Moss in it, so I was like, yay, for a brief period. So
that's cool. Yeah.
That was good. But no, it's a nice throwaway. Like, you can just put it on and just let your mind shut off. It's
decent, but
yeah, like, I'd say it's not so bad I'd turn it off, because there's some interesting performances, but it's just like I didn't really get a full sense of the Bye Bye Man, because I can't remember much.
And based on the reviews I've seen of that movie, that kind of tracks. Everybody's kind of like, eh.
Like, it's a fine line to always draw when you're doing these movies, is you want to have enough backstory about the creature without overwhelming it and explaining too much. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of, they went too far in the making it not telling us enough. Right. So it's a hard thing to do. So I mean, they tried, but kudos to them. Then I had Ouija too, like the one with the girl who becomes possessed. Really good.
Yeah, that appears a little later on my list. I gotta say, they really made up for their first outing. It's a prequel. And really great way to handle it. I really enjoyed that movie.
And the time frame they brought it back to was really enjoyable. And the idea that they were doing seances for people, and it was a fraud, and then it wasn't a fraud, is really, I love that idea.
Yeah, and did you note the director of that movie?
Oh, I don't.
When I think of other people who are going to be new Masters of Horror, Mike Flanagan is also on that list, and he is on my list several times.
Oh, it was so well done. It creeped me out constantly, and it had oh god, I can't remember his name now. It's gone. From E.T., Elliot from E.T., and now Henry Thomas. He's like a grown man now, and it's weird to me.
He's starting to show up in more stuff. I'm actually glad to see him, because he's a very competent actor.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I think he's one of the best things in this.
He was good in this movie, yeah.
And it's so funny where I'm like going, oh, Henry Thomas, and I kind of like, it's weird because he's a man now, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's nice to see that version of him now.
I didn't even make the connection when I watched it, to be honest.
Well, it took me a little while. You know, when you look at an actor, you're like, frick, they look familiar, and then it comes to you, and he's great in it.
Yep, never came to me.
So, and then after that, I went back in time for one that we had talked about, which I wasn't sure I'd seen, and then I watched it, and I did not see it, so I put in there Lord of Illusions.
Excellent. I love Lord of Illusions.
That's a great Clive Barker film.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the most underrated ones.
And it's got a great backstory. It's got stuff that I've learned from, and I'm learning from all these movies. Now when we talk about how women think about like horror is survival mechanism, this teaches me a lot. Okay, A, if you're part of a cult, don't let the other cult people live. B, if your cult has a house, burn down the fucking house. These will help you later. Just remember all of this. The effects look a little dated, but it's really good.
Yeah, you got the performance. The gentleman who plays Nix was great.
Yeah, like the anti-hero hero is the guy who like comes and saves the girl.
Scott Bakula.
No, but he saves the girl at the beginning, and he's married to her. He's the magician.
Oh, yes.
I can't remember his name, but he's so good. I like seeing him in a role where he's not strictly an evil person. Mm-hmm. It's very refreshing. And Famke Janssen was in this. Had no idea. Mm-hmm. But very enjoyable. And then I stayed back in the 90s and watched Night Flyer.
Oh, cool. I don't think I've ever seen Night Flyer. I gotta have to put that one on my list, actually.
Yeah, based on a short story by Stephen King, and starring, oh god, my names are gone. He plays great assholes, but he's so good. It'll come to me later. But it's a simple story. This Night Flyer shows up at airfields, like kind of really out of the way airfields, and then people who run the airfields kind of like show up dead. Like it's a flying vampire, but he flies around in a plane.
Oh. The bat wings don't work.
No.
All right.
Well, it does, but I don't think you just can cover a lot of ground that way.
Yeah. I can't remember if I've seen this movie or if I read the story, and I always have that problem with stuff that's adapted from books.
Mm-hmm. Miguel Ferrer. That's who's the lead in it, and he is fantastic in it.
No stranger to Stephen King adaptations, for sure.
Yeah, and talk about a dude who can say things. You know when people record into tape recorders, memo to self? Mm-hmm. Nobody can sell bullshit that nobody would say in a recorder like Miguel Ferrer.
Yes.
Yeah, I was pretty sad when he passed away last year. He was, or was it? He might have been earlier this year.
It was earlier this year.
That was like, oh man, there's a guy who just never quite exploded the way he should have.
Yeah, he was a great character actor. He was busy his entire life. So,
yeah.
And then after that, number 6, The Awakening, takes place. Yeah, I've got a lot of things where stuff happens at boarding schools and where people are trying to disprove supernatural phenomena. Because as of Ouija as well, it's a fraud. In this one, the main character, Rebecca Hall, she's gone to this place to prove there is no ghost. And then there's like an incredible twist at the end, which I thought was great. And again, I don't know why. I seem to gravitate at least one movie a year where I feel just very sad how things came together at the end, like some poor ghost.
All right, well, see, already in your first week, patterns are forming.
Yeah, and then finally, number 7, Abattoir. Interesting concept. Execution, very poor.
That was the guy who took over the Saw franchise, Darren Lynn Bousman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one that I kind of wanted to see because he initially adapted it for comic books before it got filmed. So it was always in the back of my mind of something to check out.
It's an odd-looking movie because it looks like the production designer, they had like 7 production designers. Now, the first production designer designed the female lead's clothing and car and put her in the 50s. The second production designer did the male lead. He's in the 80s. The third production designer put Lynn Shay in somewhere 1970-ish as a child. Like, it's all over the place. I don't know what time this happens in. I think I'm supposed to believe it's now. I do not get that.
Was there a cell phone?
I think there was, but it's the oddest way. But visually at the end, the visualization of what's been created is pretty impressive, and I did enjoy it. But I didn't really understand why the whole thing happened in the first place. So
that sucks. What's your number 8?
And number 8 is Anguish. Really good. Young woman keeps seeing it's sort of a possession / take on mental illness, which was really interesting to me because there's a young girl that suffers from depression, all sorts of other mental issues, and her mother and her are staying in some place like trying to rebuild their lives, and this other girl has died previously, but like she's the only one who can connect. It's a very interesting take on it. I quite enjoyed it. It's another one. There's mental illness comes up a few times in here as well.
What was your favorite for the week?
Oh my God, Ouija. Ouija was really good. But Night Flyer because I love Miguel Ferrer, so I don't know. It's a toss-up.
Nice.
Something is watching. Something is listening. Something is coming.
How would you like to see the world the way it really is?
What's going on here? Detective Harry Damour is walking a path.
I want you to help me. Will you take the job, Mr. Damour?
Where do I sign up?
Between what can be seen.
People are dying here. I want to know why. I've heard a name. Somebody they talk about in whispers. Who? Nix.
And what must be feared.
Nix is dead and buried. What the hell is wrong with you people?
Haven't you seen enough to know that doesn't matter?
Now.
I don't want him getting in the way. We've always waited too long to have the homecoming spoiled.
Every step he takes.
The drone, the dark side. Don't like that.
Not much.
It's your destiny. Accept it.
Brings him closer to the truth.
You could get into people's heads, make them see things. Terrible things.
See, that's his best trick. No illusions, just the truth.
If Nix is back from the dead, then he is some kind of a god.
In a world where magic is real, death is the ultimate illusion.
I was born to murder the world. Are you ready for my wisdom?
It's not real. Stop! Come in!
Want to come with me, Damour? I've got so much power to give you. All you have to do is beg.
Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions.
Okay, Sam.
Okay, I started off with one that most people have already seen or know about. And I'm really sad that I did watch it. I watched The Witch, and I really loved the way it looked. And the last 10, 15 minutes were astounding. They were really good. But the first hour and a half, I couldn't understand a fucking word they said.
Yeah, it's all period language. I covered that one
Yeah.
last year, and really impressed. Brilliant filmmaking. Like, it is gorgeous.
It's stunning.
And everything's done in period language, which can make it very difficult to follow. You got to be paying really close attention to it,
And I found, and I'm not
be
sure
patient with it.
Maybe the copy I watched or what, but the audio on the dialogue was lower than the background noise. So half the time you could barely hear what they were saying on top of this mangled language.
I think when I watched
then that would be frustrating.
mine, I had to turn off my stereo system and then just watch it on regular television because it was doing the same thing. It was pushing the dialogue back, and I had to just adjust settings and stuff before
the sound design was really poor.
Well, it was designed for theatrical, and
Yeah.
I don't think, and home theater systems, and the dialogue is probably supposed to be behind you, but I don't have a 7.1 or a 5, even a 5.1. I got just two speakers that I'm working from, and it didn't work. So
it made it really challenging to enjoy the movie, and it took me a long time to figure out what was going on. I mean, ultimately, when you see the end, you figure out what's going on. Is this young woman is a born witch, I guess? And like I said, the last 15 minutes where everything comes together is great. It's just I had so much trouble enjoying it because of the dialogue and the way we think Old English sounds. Right? There's no recording, so we don't know it sounds like that. We're assuming that it does, based on the way it's written.
Yeah, you're going by writings, but again, as we write, we sometimes don't actually speak like that.
That's true, and that's so sometimes it's a little challenging to watch that type of thing. On the whole, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. I felt that it was a little overrated to me as far as great films. My next film was really good. I really, really enjoyed this. It was A Dark Song from Ireland.
Yes.
It's on Trish's list. And I loved almost every single moment of this film, from start to finish. There's one moment that yanked me right the fuck out, though. Do you know what moment I'm talking about?
I'm not sure which one.
I don't want to ruin it, but there's a moment right near the end where you see something that you really didn't need to see.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I know the one you mean.
Yes.
And they're not going to tell me.
They're not going to tell you. You have to watch it.
We
because
want
it's
you
worth
to watch
watching.
this. It's definitely worth watching.
It's a incredibly small cast film. It's literally 2 people with a couple minor appearances from people early in the film, and it's this really great journey for these 2 characters. They were trying to perform this ritual so that she can speak to her son one last time, and it's just a character study that's really actually quite horrifying at moments and quite heartwarming at others. It's so good.
Well, it's also not even speak to her son. It's sort of he says he'll do the ceremony if she's like completely honest, but there's like reveals as she goes along. Like she does want to speak to her son, but she also wants vengeance at some point.
Yeah,
too.
like it's there's a whole bunch happening here, and it's so worth watching. And the fact that the lead actor in it is a comedian and he plays such a horrible human being, because he's a fucking horrible human being. But yeah, but he's so good. He is so good. And unfortunately, we're not as thorough as Jay, and we don't put down actors and directors and stuff like that because half the time you don't know who they are anyhow in these movies.
Well, especially with these earlier ones, but I make note of them specifically because I can make connections down the road because I've done this so many times. And I'm like, fuck, I've watched a shit ton of Mike Flanagan films and I've liked them all. Yeah. So,
and I did do that last year to a certain extent. There was a director that I watched all the films of his I could find last year.
That's right.
Nice.
Because they were just so good. This year I only did it with one director, and we'll get to him actually in week 2.
And the one actor you're talking about, he's in another kind of semi-horror movie that's really good.
Yes, and I actually almost watched that because I liked him so much in this, but I decided I'd save that one. I don't want to blow my wad, as it were. Especially when you just really like something, because I did that last year. There's that director that I really liked last year, and there was nothing of his that I could watch this year. Yeah. So it's always tough when you do that. My third movie was You're Next, as Jay mentioned. Trish watched it last year, and I watched it this year. This was probably one of the best takes I've ever seen on the home invasion shtick.
Yes.
For 2 reasons. One, because there was a reason for these stalkers to be there. I love the fact that there was a purpose. It wasn't just random psychopathic people. They had a reason. Love that because it adds depth to the story. And then I also love the fact that our final girl has a reason for all the things that she knows how to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And again, everything is so well developed, and the tension is amped up to 11. And there's, I don't want to call it a twist. It was a minor surprise. I wasn't expecting it, but it happened that I really enjoyed. And then the final twist there was also brilliant. And like I said, it's one of those movies that should be seen by anybody who likes the sort of stalker slasher genre because it's done so well and so differently. Highly recommend that one. My fourth movie, I did not pick. Okay, I'm counting this because my wife picked this and she loves these movies. I don't.
Okay.
Okay. I said...
And your mind hasn't been changed.
It has not been
curious
changed.
now.
It has not been changed. I said, before we started 31 Days of Horror, that I was going to do my absolute best not to watch any found footage film because I fucking hate it.
Okay.
Hate it. Did you catch that?
Sam, do you like that?
I don't know. He seems
No,
very
I do
ambiguous.
not. I do not like found footage films. I find that most of them, there's no rhyme or reason for a lot of the footage to be found. Yeah. Right? There's no reason for them to have not dropped the fucking camera and run. Bottom line.
Okay.
Okay. There are exceptions. Houses October Built is an exception.
Yes, that was one I really enjoyed last year, and I'm going to talk about
the purpose of that is they had to have the camera.
There was a reason for the cameras. This one did work fairly well. All of the cameras made sense. Like all the footage actually did make sense. It was surprisingly well written considering it was a mock what they call a mockumentary of the paranormal activity movies, like because they came out around the same time, and it was they were capitalizing it like those low budget studios do. They try to release similar stuff at the same time.
Yeah,
it was okay.
What's it called?
It's called Paranormal Entity from 2009.
Okay.
Thank you, Jay. I forgot about that. I got on my rant and forgot to tell you what I was. I watched.
Like, for God's sakes, tell me what it's called.
Yes,
I know. I was like, what's happening?
Yeah, it wasn't terrible, but it was still found footage, and it was still that genre that I don't really care for. I'm kind of tired of it. I'm done on it. Right, but mostly the found footage. And the performances were by a couple of the actors were actually pretty good. The mother was terrible, terrible, but it worked for what it was, especially considering it was at the beginning of the genre, where a lot of the tropes that we see now are now so overdone. But so it wasn't terrible. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really like it either.
Okay, fair.
Movie number 5. This is one of the ones I ruined for you. I watched Society.
Oh, yeah. Which I
Yes.
took off my list.
Yes.
I should have watched it, though.
You should have watched it.
I have seen it before.
It is absolutely fucking bonkers. It is just nuts.
Bonkers just seem to be underselling it.
It was
It's more
Brian Yuzna, right?
Yes.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
more mental than bonkers. Like it's more crazy.
I mean, you have like body horror. You have cannibal orgies.
Intense body horror.
Intense body horror. You have a literal butt face.
Oh, they can see that every week on Preacher now.
Well, yeah. Well, no, because he is a figurative butt face. This guy actually has a face where his asshole is.
Yeah. Like this is, it's something in which like if you had popcorn, you would pretty much stop eating it after a certain point in the movie.
Now that
Because it might come out your face. Your face hole.
No,
Your
you're
face
just
hole?
so disgusted. Well, you'll vomit out your face hole, maybe.
I mean the effects are extremely dated, and certainly it wasn't as disturbing as it would have been in 1989 when this film came out.
Right.
Because the effects would have been great in 1989.
Yeah.
Like they were really well done for that time period. Now we can do so much better.
But some of the gooiness was effective.
Some of the gooiness was effective. The story, I mean, it has incestual undertones, and it's really kind of off-putting, but in a really weird, enjoyable way. It's really strange. It was a fun movie to watch. I don't know if I'd ever want to see it again unless we were remaking it. Because it is one of those movies that could be remade quite easily. So it might be one we'll see a couple of years down the future. I don't know how much any sooner than that.
Did you feel there are some aspects that felt trauma-esque?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I wasn't Yesna ancillary involved with trauma at one point?
I'm sorry, don't know.
Yeah.
Some of our fans might know, but...
Yeah, but I don't. But yeah, it was fun body horror. Nothing to write home about, but definitely it was a good, fun movie to watch after Paranormal Entity, and it was a good lead into my next two films.
He does like doing these kind of crazy body horror type movies, Reanimator with humorous undertones to it. So he's not afraid to take you into uncomfortable places and still make fun of it.
Yes, yeah, and that's clearly what Society was doing. It took a long time to get where it was going. It did take a long time to get where it was going, but when it did, it well worth the payoff. Yeah, and I mean it was 1989, and anybody who grew up in the late 80s has seen the cover to this film because it's. And I don't know how I've never seen it before. Like because I worked in video stores for how many years, and I do not know why I never took this home to actually watch it because it's got this beautiful woman on the cover with a mask pulling over and showing the sort of disfigured face but underneath it, and that was totally my thing. I'm like I remember that cover. How have I not seen this?
Right.
Yep.
Especially given this was back when I was just starting to really discover horror. And like that late 80s was when I was old enough to really understand and get a lot of it.
Right.
For the 31 days, you can find these little ones that you've never seen before.
Yeah, somehow they've slid under your radar. Number 6 was an Eli Roth film called Clown.
I'd seen a trailer for Clown, and I kind of made a mental note of it, and I never did get to it, but it actually didn't look too bad. But I do kind of have a hatred for Eli Roth movies, so that might have put me off.
And you need to reassess Eli Roth. I'm going to be honest with you, because if you're comparing it to his Hostel torture porn days, he's moved in a completely different direction.
Well, I didn't like Hostel. I didn't like Cabin Fever. I don't even like when he appears in movies.
Yeah.
But lately, he's turned up in some podcasts. I love when he talks about movies. Like, he has a real passion for them, and it does make me want to reassess and maybe take another look at some of these movies because, man, he's really passionate about these genres.
Yeah. See, and I hem and haw because I liked Cabin Fever and I did not like Hostel.
I have not seen Cabin Fever. I didn't hate Hostel. I mean, it was what it was. They're taking what Saw did and amping it up a little bit further still. But last year I watched Knock Knock by Eli Roth. Really enjoyed it, and it was far more psychological than it was physical in terms of horror.
Now, did he just produce this, or did he?
I don't recall if he directed it or produced it or both. But certainly his name is associated with it, and it's definitely a step in a different direction for his horror. Clown is very similar. There's very little gore in it. It's without ruining the story. This guy finds a clown suit that actually is alive and attaches himself to him.
Oh, like with the Spider-Man. The
very, very much like the symbiote suit.
Venom symbiote.
Venom. Yeah. That's it.
And it's more about his the trauma to him of becoming this demon. Right? It's actually a demon skin that has bonded to him, and it's really well done. Minimal gore. The terror is all about his transformation and his family trying to help him.
Well, it's like taking a takeoff on like when people talk about people who become clowns. They say when they put the makeup on, they are a different person. They are that character.
And that's certainly where the inspiration from this obviously came from. And then they took it into a sort of a supernatural realm, and it worked. It worked really well. I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie of the week or even of the month, but it certainly was a fun watch. I really did enjoy it.
Sounds like a fun concept.
It is. It was, like I said, definitely. We want to give you Riley Roth some credit for growing with the genre and moving away from what made him famous, because he's better than that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm glad to hear it. I will give Eli Roth stuff another go.
You might want to skip the Green Inferno. From what I understand, that's probably closer to.
I don't like
don't.
cannibal movies in general,
Yeah.
so it was never really on my list. And but I've heard good things about Knock Knock and Clown. I have seen the trailer for Clown, and it also looked intriguing to me. So
I would not hesitate to recommend this to somebody who likes sort of that psychological supernatural horror. My next movie was called The Boy.
And Trish wanted to watch this last year, but watched the wrong one.
Yeah, is this the wrong one that I started watching, or was it the one that I had watched?
I don't remember which one you watched.
The one I watched was like the possessed doll, but I think you might be doing the sociopathic boy one, which I thought was a different one.
I don't know if it's the same one you watched or not. This is the one where the lady's hired to be a nanny for a doll.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a possessed doll, but it's
But
there's
it's
a whole
not.
thing.
Again, really well done. I really enjoyed it because it took the creepy doll trope and turned it on its head. It worked really, really well. I really enjoyed it. Some great performances by the actress who played the nanny, and I really should write down names.
From Walking Dead.
And Jay's rolling his
I'm
eye.
the only one who does his research.
Sorry.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I do
have
want to watch.
2 lines of notes on my page
I know.
for each movie. 2. That's it.
I have some that notes where I remember them, but yeah, I just like I said, really, I'm about what the movie did for me, not about who was in it. But I should be noting more,
Me too.
because especially when the performances were so good. I mean, she was really solid.
It's not like this is the first rodeo.
But you know what?
Yeah, I know.
There's Wikipedia. Anybody can go look it up. It's okay.
Besides, if we dig too deep as you do, this is going to be a much longer podcast.
It's already a much longer podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, no, she's Maggie on The Walking Dead. So
Yes,
if you want to know who she is.
that's right. She is. But yeah, watch it. It's a lot of fun, and it has a very interesting turn on the whole creepy possessed doll trope.
Right.
So I really enjoyed it. I was pleasantly surprised. And then number 8, it went into the way back, and I went to 1971 and watched something called Blood and Lace.
That's been on my list. I didn't get to it.
I wouldn't waste your time.
Oh, okay. See, I've heard visually it looks interesting, or maybe I'm mixing it up with something else.
This is sort of, I guess, classified as one of the early slasher films. It's not.
Okay,
I don't know
I'm
what
thinking of a different one.
it was. Honestly, I was watching it. I'm like, okay, it's kind of interesting, but I don't know what the fuck's going on, and why is this happening, and why is this happening, and like they're trying to cram too much stuff into this one movie because you've got the orphaned girl whose family was murdered, or whose mother was murdered, and then you have the foster home that she can't leave till she's 21.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different film.
What?
Yeah, I know.
I'm definitely thinking of a different film.
And they can't leave. If they try to leave, they get murdered.
What?
Yeah. And then they get put into an icebox, and there's these weird sexual undertones, like.
See, having them there
very-
and can't leave, that's just a prime, that's a plot, that's one plot, and that's one plot you could probably do, right?
Exactly. But then
Yeah, you've already told me like 3 different movies here.
and it's all in one movie.
Yeah.
It's confusing as all heck, and it never really ties together very well.
Maybe we should remake it.
Yeah, we could.
But Sam doesn't want to watch it again.
I do not want to watch it again. It was really hard to watch because you've got the evil headmistress, her lackey groundsman who's blackmailing the evil headmistress. You've got the orphan girl who men apparently just can't keep their hands off of. It's very rapey. It made me uncomfortable. So I can't imagine how it would make somebody like a woman uncomfortable because it's very, very rapey. Then I'm going to ruin it because it
doesn't matter
because it was so bad. She doesn't know who her father was. The police chief who rescues her turns out to be her father.
Oh, okay.
After he professes her love for her and asks her to marry him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It just skeevy, creepy all the way along. And the reason I watched this was because it was on a list of best underrated horror movies. No, it is not.
No, it's not on the list, or no, it's not underrated.
No, it's not underrated, and no, it is not best of anything.
It can be anything. It can only be overrated in any sense.
It might be on the best list of piles of shit. Because that's really, I was kind to it in my Twitter response to it, but as I'm thinking back on this movie and how baffled I was by the whole process and how incomprehensible the whole story was, it was a piece of shit.
It's like somebody who's like, I'm going to get one chance to make one movie my whole life, so I'll make all of them at once.
That's a really good way of putting it. Somebody's cramming 3 story ideas into one movie, and any one of them could have worked really well. And the performances were good. And it didn't look that bad, especially for 1971. Mm-hmm. But it just didn't coalesce properly. And it used some really stuff that just doesn't play well now with all of the creepy sexual undertones.
Yeah.
Right? Because there were a lot of creepy sexual undertones. And there's underage sex stuff happening. I mean, it's not graphic, but it's all talked about and suggested. And the whole movie, if you want a movie that makes you uncomfortable, this does it. But for the wrong reasons.
Right. Okay, what was your favorite for the week?
My favorite for the week had to be A Dark Song.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it was by far the strongest of the films I watched. Clown and Boy were good, but A Dark Song, that still sticks in my head, and it was so wonderfully moody.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to play the trailer for Cult of Chucky. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix right now, at least Canadian Netflix. I don't know about the Americans, but it's on Netflix as far as we know. Yeah, different lineups on our Netflix. But you can go check that out right now, and we'll be back here with one of your lists and our second week, our next date.
I was 6. My babysitter was murdered.
And they never caught him?
Justice was done.
Wanna play?
Mika, the murders were real.
Chucky never was.
That's right. He was a fantasy, a delusion.
Are you feeling better now?
I don't blame you for being afraid. I was very ill.
Chucky told me. He's coming for you.
It's important that we all explore it together as a group. I think I have something that will help.
Whoa. Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
First, he'll kill each and every one of you in the most horrible ways you can imagine. And then he'll kill me too.
Come to mommy.
Oh, come.
Are you afraid of the truth?
Terrified. You should be too.
Night night. And they call me sick?
Wait a minute, there's 2 of them?
He'll kill us all!
A true classic never goes out of style.
Cult of Chucky, that was fun. I really enjoyed that.
So good.
Okay, so now we are going into week 2, but before we do that, our own fan base was also doing their lists, and Xavier, who followed along with us, provided us with his own list, and we're going to read out his list before we get into our next date.
Yeah, no, and I mean, Xavier, a shout out to Xavier, because he's really got to be one of our more active listeners, too. He's constantly telling people about us via social media, and it seems like every chance he gets. So, yes, thank you, Xavier.
Yes.
Right. And it is our pleasure to present your list for this year. And he did make 31, although some of them I don't know if they're horror. Well, I guess they are kind of.
Well, that's the great thing. It's our show. We'll be the judge.
We'll be the judge of that. So his first movie was Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. That one counts because we did one last year.
And Trish and I covered that as a remake episode, so please go back into the archives and find that. We remade that and find out how we did that by jumping back into the archives. It was a fun episode, and I'm a big fan of that movie.
Yeah.
And how can you not be?
Yeah.
Number 2 was Before I Wake. Number 3, we've heard this one once already today. Cult of Chucky.
Yep.
Number 4 was 47 Meters Down.
Shark one.
Yep. We talked a little bit about that on our Shark episode. Go check that out.
It wasn't released at that point, but
thank you, Xavier. You're making this pluggericious.
Yes, and I think there's a few more on here that we might have be able to touch base on here. Number 5 was The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. A little Don Knotts, I think, isn't it?
Oh, yes, I think that is. Yes.
I was
a friend of mine actually wound
didn't.
up watching it over the holidays as well, the Halloween times. So.
Number 6 was Highway to Hell.
Yes.
Number 7 was Incarnate.
Yep.
Number 8 was Life. This was a tough one. I think Xavier even asked if we could consider this horror.
I will give it because it is essentially kind of an Aliens kind of thing. We've seen sci-fi horror before. I personally would think it leans more to science fiction, but I haven't actually seen it, so I'm going to give him that one.
Yeah, I think it does have a bit of a horror element. So
yeah.
If we give him Ghost and Mr. Chicken, we got to give him Life.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I guess so. I'm okay with horror comedy if it's got a dark theme, if it's got ghosts, but it's funny. I'm okay with that. That's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. Number 9 was Night of the Lepus.
Oh, the giant rabbits. Giant rabbits.
That totally counts.
Yeah. That definitely counts.
We
might do that one.
I know, right?
There we go. Number 10 was One Dark Night.
Okay.
Number 11 was Rabid. If this is the old one from the 70s, yikes.
Yeah.
Totally totally horror.
Good one, Rabid.
Yeah. Number 12 was The Sorcerers.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I don't know about that one. I have to go look that one up.
Well, it's on the list, and I believe it is more about sort of witchcraft.
Okay,
but you can have fantasy horror. That's the thing. Horror sort of dips its toes in other areas.
It really does. Number 13 was Tales of Poe. Guaranteed to be horror if it's got Poe in the title.
Absolutely.
Number 14 was The Unseen.
It's got a good list. There's a lot of stuff on there I haven't seen.
Yeah. Number 15 was Vampire.
Okay.
Number 16 was Whipping the Body.
Huh.
That definitely sounds like horror.
Yeah. Number 17 was XX. We'll be talking about that later on because a couple of us watched that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an anthology, 4 tales by 4 female directors.
Yes.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. Number 18 was Happy Death Day. I think that was
in theaters right now.
I've got two crossovers with them already.
Okay.
You got 3 because number 19 was Abattoir.
Nice.
Okay. I wonder how he felt about that.
I know. We have to find out.
Number 20 was Beyond the Gates.
Beyond the Gates.
That's an older movie. I think that's 8.
He's got a good mix. He's all over the place, and I think it's pretty wonderful that he's so diverse.
It's nicely curated.
And I've seen Xavier's Facebook feed, and I am surprised that he was able to find 31 horror movies he hasn't seen.
Yes.
True. Yeah, for all the movies I've seen, horror movies I've seen, he is definitely tops me for sure.
For sure. So number 20 was Beyond the Gates. Number 21 was The Babysitter, which I believe is on at least one list for one of our hosts this year.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Die, Die, Darling was number 22. That's an older one as well, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
It's the
70s, if my memory serves, but I don't quote me on that.
Number 23 was Wish Upon.
Oh, yeah. That's we have another crossover.
There we go. Number 24 was Ghosts of Edendale.
No, I don't know that one. Man, that's a good list.
It is a very good list.
I'm going to have to look up some of these.
I might be using this list for next year.
Yeah, there's well, I don't know. There's some stuff on there that I probably wouldn't watch, but for the most part, yeah, it's a pretty good list. Number 25 was 1922, which I've been eyeing on Netflix for the last couple of days.
I am going to say he owes me one because that is not a horror movie.
It's because it's a Stephen King adaptation, though.
You go on IMDb, it's not a horror movie.
Well, I would say from what I've seen in 1922.
I was going to watch 1922, and then I did some research. I'm like, no, I don't think I can qualify this one.
It's very Dolores Claiborne, I think.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe Ride's on that edge.
It's a cusp.
I'll let our fan base judge whether. But I'm going to say next year, you owe me 32.
Unless otherwise corrected.
You
know what? This is Xavier. For the amount of horror movies that he's seen.
Xavier. He doesn't run the New Mutants or the X-Men or.
Yeah. Yeah, he's Professor.
Although he'd be way cooler.
He's Professor Xavier of Horror, is who he is. So Xavier has seen a lot of horror movies. I think he gets a freebie.
I want 32 next year.
We'll see, because I'm still thinking about watching 1922.
I'm going to watch 1922 to be determined. Your judgment and possible punishment is on hold for the moment.
Sure. Okay. There we go.
Until we have watched 1922.
That's an excellent compromise.
Okay. Number 26 is definitely horror. Leatherface, which I do want to see.
Prequel to the original film.
Yep. Number 27, Jigsaw, which I also want to see.
I also want to see. It's the only Saw movie I have not
I'm
seen.
not sure.
I stopped after number 3, so I have a few to catch up on, actually.
Yeah.
Number 28 was Killer Party.
Nice.
Number 29 was Gerald's Game.
Excellent. It's also on my list.
Number 30 is It Comes at Night, and I think that was on a couple lists last year.
I wanted to see that. I didn't get around to it, but excellent choice. It's on a lot of best of lists, so good choice.
And then number 31 was Victor Crowley.
That pisses me off because I didn't think it had played, and when I saw him post that, I'm like, oh, I would have gone to that because a huge Hatchet franchise, just Adam Green in general, I think makes great movies, but I really like the Hatchet franchise, and I was very upset when I found out it had played here and I didn't get to see it.
It did on Halloween.
So,
yeah.
Damn it.
I know. I only found out kind of very late in the day.
I am jealous of that. Yeah.
But you'll get it next year.
Well, by next year, I will probably own it on DVD. My last few movies I've got from Adam Green, I've ordered straight from his website, and they come signed and all that. And it's about the same as I would have paid on Amazon. So, and then I get it signed. So it's all good.
There you go.
Yeah.
But no, it was a good list.
I'd say that's a very good list. To be determined whether 1922 counts. We'll get back to you, Xavier.
Yeah.
We know you're listening, so we'll get back to you once we've seen it. And I don't know. There may be penance to be done here for waffling on the line a little bit.
Well, it's always a strange thing because you can have what people would call a horror thriller, which in many ways, I've seen some that I would say they're all thriller, no horror, and some that are some horror and a little bit of thriller. So I don't know. That's the weird one that dances along the line.
Yeah. And when it comes to like something like Stephen King, it's like, well, it's just because it's Stephen King, you can't put Shawshank Redemption on a horror list.
That's a good,
right?
That's a good way of putting it.
Or Dark Tower, for that matter.
If you've
It's
read the
sci-fi-ish.
books,
I have read the first 3, and I would at no point.
No, they are,
call it
because they are
horror.
fantasy. They do move more into the horror near the end of the franchise,
Right.
but certainly the first 3 books tend to be more fantasy, less horror.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe we're starting to set some ground rules here that maybe we haven't pre-established. But overall, Xavier, great job.
Although I think I'm
and thank you for coming out because I mean that's a commitment, as we know.
Oh yes,
it can be tough because life does sometimes get in the way and make it very challenging to fit all those movies in.
And for some of these, I will admit, I go by, like, IMDb will have it as a horror something, and then I watched, I'm like, I'm not terribly sure I watched a horror movie.
Right.
I had a few of those last year. This year, I did pretty good on not having too many of those where I question whether or not they're horror.
Gentlemen, I hope you appreciate the situation. Things have gone south. No doubt. Now, whatever you saw or did is no longer my concern. But let's be clear. It won't end well.
You're coming.
Okay, well, I think we are just about ready to get into our next 8. I'm going to have Trish start this one off. We're going to
All right.
just circle around the room. So, what is your number 9?
My number 9 was
For
a little,
week 2.
Week 2. It was a surprise for me. I was trying to make something else work, so ended up watching this one instead. I also couldn't sleep. So I was like, something that'll be easy to watch. ABCs of Death 2.
I'd seen the first one. I have not seen the second one. A lot of short films. Some are better than others. That's the nature of
Yeah.
the beast when you come to anthologies. So
I think the second one leans more towards comedy. There are a number of kind of comedic ones.
yeah, there were times where I'm like, I don't like, especially with the first one where I didn't think, I'm like, is this even a horror anthology? Like, they're going through it, and it's a theme around death, and they certainly make the posters feel like it's a horror anthology, but it's not. It's just basically the themes of death. And it didn't seem as concentrated on horror. There certainly were some horror shorts, for sure.
Well, I'd say some of the bits that I watched, there was particularly one, I think it was S, which just left me kind of like that was absolutely horror. Like the whole sequence about it was horror.
Yeah.
And then there were some that were just a lot of fun. And then there was one that was like a complete twist on what zombies are. Like if the zombies took over and all the humans were killing them, we're like, why are you killing all of us? So it was a lot of fun. There's one called Badger, which is short and sweet, but dark. It's great.
That's great. It's a fun horror anthology in general. The first one, I think there were a lot of shorts that were just around death and not super horror, but there definitely were horror ones, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
So, and they're from all around the world, so it's fun. I'm hoping we'll get an ABC's 3. So.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a challenge in storytelling to do your tiny story in such a short period of time and make it all cohesive and make it make sense.
Yeah.
So there's some good directors that are doing that.
Yeah. Oh man, there was a movie I watched last year, and it was based on a short that was done for ABCs of Death.
Oh, nice.
But didn't get into the final cut. So
cool.
He wound up. I think he released the short on YouTube or whatever, and then made a full feature around it. It was great. It was really good.
Awesome.
Turbo Kid.
There we go. Yes, you told us. Yeah, I remember that when you were talking about that one. Yeah.
That's really cool.
And that was good. I watched that last year too.
Yeah, Turbo Kid was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is a great thing. It's a breeding ground for all sorts of cool stuff that can come out of it.
For sure.
Hatchet 3 was number 10.
As I said, big fan of the Hatchet franchise, and I really like that one. I thought I remember watching number 2, and I'm like, but I thought they lost its way a little bit. But three brings it all back. So.
3 brings it all back with one interaction where he's talking to her. He's like, "Okay, are you gonna have me believe that all this happened to you and then you went back? What kind of stupid plot is that?" And then the director is like drunk guy in the other cell. They show up with it, like they just cut to him really closely, going like, "What the fuck?" Like it's so good.
And actually, Adam didn't direct that one.
Oh, but he did. It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's very good.
He held himself to task, which was brilliant.
Yes.
I loved it. And then I went way back for number 11, Old Dark House from 1932.
Oh, you definitely went way back.
Yeah.
I don't think I watched anything that old.
The oldest I watched was 1957.
Yeah.
Well,
that's probably right around where I was too.
Yeah, I went back because it said horror comedy. Directed by James Whale.
Oh,
so I was
wow.
like, I'm going to do this. And Boris Karloff is in it.
James Whale, Frankenstein, Freaks.
Yeah, and Boris Karloff is in it. So it's like people stuck in an old abandoned house in the middle of nowhere, and there's this creepy, weird family. A little bit of a twist at the end, which was just a lot of fun. But
something we should do for the show, maybe?
I think maybe. And quite frankly, Old Dark House, remember when we did Haunted Honeymoon?
Yeah.
Several parts of that are from this movie. I didn't know what the references were.
Oh.
So they lifted some of the comedy from here and put it in that.
Oh.
It's an and the whole thing of Haunted Honeymoon, it's an obvious take on Old Dark House.
Oh, well, there you go.
Which we didn't know at the time.
Yeah, time to go back to reference that movie.
Exactly, but it's good to watch. I would totally recommend it. You can find it on YouTube. So.
Oh, cool.
And then Cult of Chucky.
Yes.
As we know, loved it. Fiona Dorff is amazing. I think she's really good.
Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, especially the way that movie ends. I feel like they're starting to pave the way to take that franchise in a new direction.
Yeah. Imagine super evil Thelma and Louise. It's great.
Yeah. And, it looks like we might be moving away from the Chucky doll as Brad Dourif's getting older and may not want to do this anymore. And then they're moving in a direction where maybe we can use this franchise and do it in a different direction.
Exactly.
It's a neat idea. They did do some things that I wasn't expecting out of this one.
And it has a great thing. I have a lot of movies I've found out, like if we're talking thematically stuff, some sort of structure in the middle of nowhere, and people are kind of trapped there. That happens a bunch of times.
Well, that's a pretty common horror trope.
In all of my movies. But this one was like a mental facility in the middle of... And I loves me a winter horror, so this was really good. If you haven't watched Cult of Chucky, watch it immediately. So good. And then after that, number 13, The Disappointments Room. Not a change room in any clothing store I've been to, or my bedroom. So that's not what this movie's about. But it's conceptually, it's something that I was not aware of. I knew people did this, but I wasn't aware it was actually called A Disappointments Room, which is like thematically this couple, they're kind of getting away from the city because of a tragedy. They're in this old house and she finds this hidden room. It's called the Disappointments Room. Like any kind of wealthy family, if they had a disfigured child or like a mentally retarded child or something that they thought would bring quote unquote shame to the family, just locked the child up there until it died, really. Took care of it, fed it, but basically just hid it away like it didn't exist.
Oof.
Yeah, so really kind of a harsh take on it. And Kate Beckinsale's in it. I really enjoy her in a lot of movies as well. Yeah, I don't know. She's a Highlander. She doesn't look like any different than she did 20 years ago.
No, she's still,
And she's a lot of fun.
Very
in
gifted.
But yeah, it's an interesting movie. I think I would have twisted it, and also mental illness is part of this as well. Like she suffers from depression, and I think maybe some bipolar, and maybe a little bit of schizophrenia. So there's that. But yeah, if you want something, I'd say watch it. But there is a bit of a gut punch, so beware. Then after that, Night of the Demon, which we did for the podcast.
Yes, we don't need to talk about. We did a whole episode of that, so go back and check that.
And it's on my list because I never saw it before.
It's just a couple weeks ago.
15, Suburban Gothic, which is another horror comedy with Matthew Gray Gubler and Kat Dennings, where he's like, again, he's getting given antipsychotics because he knows how to talk to ghosts. But it's just a weird offbeat, very John Waters, quirky mental stuff, and Ray Wise is in it. It's really good.
Oh, nice, Ray Wise. I like him. He's always good for an over-the-top performance.
Oh, exactly. And Ray Santiago from Ash vs. Evil Dead is in it as well.
Oh,
nice.
Excellent.
I know he's one of your favorites.
Oh, I love him. Very small part, but so memorable. And then Wish Upon, which is my... it's basically kind of a low-grade Wishmaster.
Oh. That doesn't sound good.
Imagine...
that's barely watchable as it is.
See, I don't mind Wishmaster. It's like, think Wishmaster meets Mean Girls is essentially what we're looking at.
That's not selling it in any way.
It was a fine movie, but I kind of see the ending coming a mile away. But the other bit about it, too, was there's Ryan Phillippe in it playing this girl's dad, and it took me a full half hour to 45 minutes to figure out it was actually Ryan Phillippe.
You're still not selling it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just trying to tell you what happened when I watched this movie.
Okay. Just want to make sure you weren't still trying to sell this movie. Because
No, I'm not trying to sell the movie. I'm just telling you what happened when I watched it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's essentially what it was. I don't think it found its own voice partway through. But the box that is kind of the key to the whole thing is kind of a pretty box. That's about it. Oh, and there's a good death with an elevator. That's basically the one best part.
Okay. Was that your 15 or 16?
That is my 16. Wish Upon was my 16.
Okay, so best one for this week.
Best one for that week, Cult of Chucky. Absolutely.
Worst one?
Worst one would probably be Wish Upon.
Okay.
Excellent. Are you going to me now?
I'm going to you.
Okay.
As I look at Sam intently.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I wasn't sure. I always like to check. Okay, so this would have been an abort for me. Number 9 would have been an abort, except I'd already posted that I was watching it. And
I always wait about 15 minutes before I post
always
anything.
Do it after.
Yeah, and I learned, because of this movie, I did learn to wait and make sure I was going to actually want to finish watching it. It should have been great. It's got Bill Nye in it, in a role that was originally written for Alan Rickman.
Oh.
And I love both of those people, so I'm wondering what's going to happen now.
It's just, he plays this really, and again, performances are wonderful. It's just this really clumsy gothic horror.
Right.
It's and this is where my theme starts to roll in for this year. I hit a lot of stuff about serial killers. A lot, because this is a gothic serial killer story. I mean, you see the twist coming a mile away. performances were the best part, and it looked phenomenal, but it was just so slow.
And what's it called?
It's called. I do it again. It's the Limehouse Golem.
Limehouse Golem. Okay.
Oh yeah, I've seen the trailer for it.
Yeah. It looks wonderful, but it's not. Oh. It's just pacing is way, way off.
So the trailer guy is amazing on this.
Yes, yeah. And if you're in the mood for maybe something slower paced, you might really enjoy it because the story's good. It's just I wasn't in the mood for the slower pace, and maybe that's why I didn't enjoy as much as I should have or could have. So I don't want to write it off, but I would have aborted it if I had had the opportunity to this particular time.
And that's sometimes the thing when we're watching these. Like, I have ones that are on my list that I curate, but I don't watch them because I'm not in the mood, I feel, to truly appreciate them.
Yeah, and I have some lists, some at the end of my list here that I wanted to watch this year, and I'm just like, I'm just not in the mood for that, right? And so I didn't watch them this year. They're staying on my list for next year instead. Number 10 was a horror comedy called 100 Bloody Acres from Australia.
I was going to watch that one.
It was a hoot. It was so much fun. And I did say a hoot because I said 100 Bloody Acres and it was all farming and stuff like that. It features it features Damon Harriman, who's an Australian actor, but a lot of North American television watchers would know him as Dewey Crow from Justified. Okay. One of my favorite parts of that series.
Right.
And he's the reason I actually wanted to watch this because I just liked him so much as Dewey. And he does play a similar character, sort of kind of the goofy backwoods guy in 100 Bloody Acres. But he's also really nice. He's part of a brother team that has been using human bodies as the secret ingredient to their formula for fertilizer. And it starts with Dewey's character, or Damon's character, collecting a body from a traffic accident. They don't kill them. They collect bodies from traffic accidents and use them in the thing. But it escalates to where they're now committing murders,
right?
Or a murder, or two or three, and it's just it's like a comedy of errors, horror, slasher, deliverance type of thing.
Wow. And I think one of mine, there's going to be this is going to be a similar theme.
Yeah, so it was. Sorry, what did you say?
I said that sounds like fun.
It is. It is absolutely a blast.
Yeah.
And Wolf Creek meets.
Yeah, there's some of that too. There's some Wolf Creek in there too. And it actually informed my next choice, which was The Loved Ones, which Jay's already mentioned I did watch, from Australia by Sean Byrne. I really love this movie.
It's mental.
It's mental, and it's so hard to describe what this movie is because it's got so many undertones to it, because there's sort of this creepy incestuous thing happening between the father and the daughter, and this creepy psycho thing that they do. It's really... I found it quite disturbing to watch, and the performance by the lead actress, whose name I didn't write down, and I should have, because I love her. I want to meet her. I want to have her children. I'm kidding.
You want to have her children?
Yeah.
No, okay, well, we're going to have some miracles of science here, too.
That's how good she is.
That's how good she was. And I recognized her originally when I first saw her from Hell on Wheels, another TV actress. She played the character who had been raised by natives and ended up being a prostitute, and one of the strongest characters in the TV series. So when I saw her in this and saw this completely different character and saw how powerful she was in it, I was over exaggerating about my feelings towards her, but she did blow me away.
I'm not sure you were.
No,
I don't fangirl that much. Okay.
No, I'm with Sam on this. And again, biologically impossible.
Yes.
I'm willing to see this through, just to see him pass a child through his urethra.
Yeah, it's so not going to happen. But yeah, it's hard to explain this movie. But I mean, the hero was so unlikable, but you still rooted for him, and you wanted to root for her because even though she was the evil one, she was more likable than he was.
Yeah.
And I liked that kind of juxtaposition. It's like you really want to root for the bad guy, but you
What's
can't.
great is if you flip-flop, like the entire movie, your who you want to win changes.
Yeah, and then there's this sub-story between the goth girl and the geeky drug user, and that's one thing that bothered me. That really didn't seem to come to fruition for me. That didn't really seem to go anywhere.
Should have been more.
There should have been more. There was no real payoff on that sub story that I felt sort of fit the rest of the movie.
Right.
But on the whole, it was really good, and it informed my next movie. And this happened to me a lot.
Nice.
My next movie was Devil's Candy, which we've already talked about. A stellar performance by Ethan Embry, and some the serial killer is very recognizable. You've seen him in a ton of stuff. In similar kind of creepy guy roles.
I'm just trying to think of his name. Was that Tony Amadello?
I believe that is, yes. Yeah. Really, really great performance. And I missed number 11. So number 10 was 100 Bloody Acres. Number 11, actually, I did skip over, was Some Guy Who Kills People, which was
I wanted to see that.
So much fun. It wasn't as humorous as I expected, but it was another great twist on serial killers. On serial killing. The lead character is a guy who's just gotten out of a mental institution. He had a mental breakdown after the mother of his child basically said, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. I don't want you to have anything to do with our child. He basically writes him off. So he has a mental breakdown. He spent like 10 or 12 years in a mental institution. And he's now coming back into society. And all of these people who ridiculed him as a teenager in high school are now dying in horrific methods. It's a lot of fun. and of course, he's the primary suspect. And without going too much further, he's not, but there's lots of great stuff that happens that sort of informs who it is.
Yeah.
Then number 12 was The Loved One. Number 13 was Devil's Candy. Number 14 occurred on Friday the 13th. So
Nice.
I watched the only Friday the 13th movie that I had not seen, and I don't regret that I did it, but it was by far the worst movie I watched all month.
Oh.
Because I watched Jason Goes to Hell the final Friday. Which
that's the one with all the little nods. It's got like the Necronomicon in it and Freddy's glove at the end.
That's right.
He jumps through people.
Yeah, and it did have this very odd feel where it wasn't a Jason movie, it was something else. And I really wanted Jason in hell. I did not want Jason killing people on Earth. I wanted Jason in hell.
What I've always wondered about that movie is, do you think if it wasn't Jason and it wasn't a Friday the 13th movie, if it would be an interesting movie?
No, it was bad. It was a bad
like
movie.
Conceptually, the concept.
Conceptually, it's been done. It was done with Denzel Washington and
oh yeah, you're right.
And that one wasn't very good either. So conceptually, it's interesting. It has yet to be handled well.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen one of those that's been done great. Like, they're entertaining, but not great.
Yeah,
I wish they could do a good one.
Yeah, me too. I would love to see a good body jump horror movie.
Yeah.
But so far I haven't, and this definitely was not it.
No, it's not.
It was just...
There's a little bit of that in Cult of Chucky as well.
There is, but I don't know why for some reason it makes more sense. Like, it just works better. I don't know why.
It's more of a possession thing, but yeah.
It's more voodoo.
Yeah, I think my comments on this were, what a piece of shit. As one singular word, because I was that emphatic about it.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, because it was one of those things that had potential, but if you're going to send Jason to hell, I want to see him in hell.
Is this, for you anyway, because there are parts of this I really kind of like, some of the darker gothic stuff, but for you, is this piece of shit, you said all one word, but is it really that bad that it needs a hashtag in front of it?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Hashtag piece of shit. Okay.
Hashtag what a piece of shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it was that bad. Really, I so disappointed. And then my next movie was Night of the Demon, which we've already talked about.
Yep.
Yeah.
So go check out
extensively.
go check out that episode from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Number 16 was a French movie called Trouble Every Day. Oh,
I've heard about that one.
Do not watch this movie. Do not. Okay,
your end of the weeks have not been good.
They have not been good.
Yeah, you're not winning.
I have realized that you should never, ever, 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 ever watch anything with Vincent Gallo in it.
Oh, I knew that. Oh, wait. No, okay, then that's all I need to know.
If anybody's seen The Brown Bunny, this is Brown Bunny with vampires.
Yeah.
Very little dialogue, really weird camera shots, Vincent Gallo looking moody, sexually frustrated in some ways. It was in French on top of it all, right? So what dialogue you had was subtitled from French, so it sometimes it didn't make sense. So maybe to a French audience it would have made sense, but it was just fucking boring.
Okay, well, I want to ask you what your worst movie of the week was.
Well, that's a tough call, because I watched Jason Goes to Hell
two.
and Trouble Every Day. This was also watched because it was on a list of best underrated horror films.
Oh man, I hope you stopped using that list.
I stopped using that list. Yes, I did, because they were 0 for 2 for me.
They can be unhelpful.
They were,
but they can be helpful, because 100 Acres I saw best horror movies you haven't seen as well. So it's a toss-up.
Actually, and it was a different list.
Yeah.
It was a different list because that's where I got 100 Bloody Acres and one of the ones I watched later on in the month, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, it's a toss-up between Jason Goes to Hell and Trouble Every Day. I would still say Jason Goes to Hell, but Trouble Every Day was really close for worst. For best, I'd have to go with Some Guy Who Kills People.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. It was one of the few where I've become sort of ADD sometimes when I watch movies, and sometimes I do fade out and I don't pay attention. But this movie, I was wrapped the whole way through.
Mm-hmm.
I put down my tablet. When my wife walked in the room, I paused it so I wouldn't miss anything. That's how much I was enjoying this movie. So that tells me that it was good.
Overall, how do you feel about the week?
I was 5 out of 7, 5 out of 8.
It's not bad.
5 out of 8 is not bad. I would say it was a good week. On the whole, yeah, it was a good week. I had a lot of.
It's just
really
the end sort of petered out.
The end did sort of peter out, and that does not continue into the. Oh, maybe it doesn't continue into the into the next week.
Okay, well, I'll get into mine now. My number 9 for week 2 was a movie I don't even remember buying.
Oh, wow.
Maybe not. I was getting Horror Block for a while, so maybe it came there, or Horror Pack, so it might have come in a blind box. In fact, it probably did, because I have no recollection of buying this, but it was in my stack of movies, and before we started, I just started pulling movies I hadn't seen, and I realized I've got more sitting in this pile than I have days in the month.
Nice.
So it was a case of, this looks interesting, and it's got Lance Henriksen in it, which is always a plus. And I think it might be my only giant monster movie as well. It's called Stung. From 2015. Directed by Benny Diaz, written by Adam Aresti. Pretty good looking movie. It's a German-US joint, but everybody speaks English in this thing. It stars Matt O'Leary, Jessica Cook, and Lance Henriksen. And is essentially about a couple of caterers who go to this rich estate, and I think the gardener's been mutating, trying to keep the bugs off, so he made this mutation bug spray kind of thing that's been mutating the wasps into these giant things. So they've gotten a little bit bigger. When they sting people, they incubate within the bodies of the people and then turn into giant wasp things. And it's great. It is so much fun. Another one where I tweeted out, I'm like, are we getting another one?
Yes.
I just saw the trailer for that because I was going to watch it, and then I saw you watched it. But yeah, it looked like so much fun.
And great little ending where, they finally, they kill off most of the wasps, and nobody thinks about other creatures, and then as they're driving away, then there's this wasp cow thing. I'm like, awesome. Great fun horror comedy. Really liked it. I think this was produced by IFC, so you might get to catch it in reruns on that channel. Highly recommend it if you can get a chance to watch it. Stung
a wasp
is a lot
cow.
of fun.
What does that look like?
Watch the movie and you'll know.
Oh.
Cow wasp.
I think like a stripy cow with a wasp abdomen and an udder. That's what I imagine.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. It was good. I really enjoyed the movie.
No joke. Do you want to hear it?
Not really.
What is a bee's favorite movie?
No idea.
Wow, this place is a piece.
You'll see it has its charms.
Hey there. Put you in charge, huh? You got much experience?
Yeah, I'm good at serving drinks. I'm good at consuming alcohol, so really I'm overqualified for the job.
He likes you.
Yeah, no. I'm pretty sure I'd rather jump off a cliff. Hey, Mr. Mayor, everything okay?
Yeah, this party needs an autopsy.
Did you see that? There are these massive wasps flying around here. You should be careful. Ow! They're like this. They're huge. Avoid everything here. It's bad.
Oh, poor baby.
Thank you all for coming. And for leaving the kids at home.
Help! I think something's been in. Get inside right now!
Oh, gosh.
What the hell just happened? Those bees.
They're not bees. Those are wasps.
bees, wasps. How the hell can all of this be happening?
How do I know when you'll be back?
You don't.
Who did it?
A lot of fun. It was a great start to the week. And then came my first found footage movie, and it's a sequel to a movie I really liked last year called The Houses October Built 2.
Nice.
Same people in this, written and directed by Bobby Rowe, written by Zach Andrews, starring Brandy Schaefer, Zach Andrews, Mikey Rowe, and Bobby Rowe. And this is based on the documentary they did of the same name prior to doing the found footage movies. They basically visit all these haunts and did a documentary of it. So when they did last year when I covered the episode, it was essentially them doing the same thing, but being tracked by some of these sideshow guys from the haunt and being put through some real terrors. And I really enjoyed it. I thought that movie was great. And then I watched the sequel. And I'm like, you guys should have left it. Should have just stayed where it was. So we catch up a few years later. They're basically internet sensations now. They got dug up from the previous movie, and Brandy wants nothing to do with it anymore. And the guys are being hired kind of as hosts for these haunts. But she's basically the grave girl, the one that's been... So it was stuck in the grave, and so she's the one who got all the hits on YouTube and all that. So there really is no money unless she's there, and she wants nothing to do with it. But gets sucked in to doing this whole thing again, and they kind of turn it on its head a little bit, and it turns into, I don't know, they try too hard to do like an M. Night Shyamalan kind of twist ending, and majority of the movie does just feel like a documentary from haunt to haunt. And that's kind of engaging in and of itself. I was really fascinated by some of this stuff. But in the end, I was like, this is... It didn't hit me the same way it did the first time.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the twist. I'm not going to quite spoil it for you if you do want to go watch it, because there's still a lot to like about it. But in the end, it felt more documentary than horror film, and that it had a much better balance the first time around. So didn't dig this one as much.
Yeah, and I was going to watch it as well, but after seeing your review, I'm like, I can wait.
Yeah.
So, that was unfortunate. And this week as a whole isn't great until a little bit later in the week. Number 11, I've threatened to watch this, and I finally did. Rings. Rings from 2017. The one we joked about that perpetually got delayed and delayed and delayed. And honestly, I wasn't expecting much out of this after all the delays. It's kind of samey. You know, new characters get drawn in to figure out another dark secret of Samara and Samara's mother and where she's buried and whatnot. And in the end, it's a big ploy of Samara so she can go out, disperse her spirit entity video thing out into the ether of the internet. But I enjoyed it because it is kind of samey. But at the same time, it's that similar formula. So if you like the other two Ring movies, you'll probably dig it, but it gets a bit old following the same formula after a while. But in the end, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. So that was a surprise. It was just no surprises either. It was same. Here
so
we
you
go
were
again.
saved by low expectations.
Saved by low expectations, but it didn't super wow me either. It was just like, that was okay. I enjoyed it. It was all right. I don't know if your time needs to be wasted on all right, but you're probably not going to... You're not going to be disappointed in the hour and a half that you invest into it. So
that's a good rule of thumb for watching horror films in general, is keep your expectations low, because it's much better to be pleasantly surprised by a really good horror than to be disappointed by a mediocre horror.
Yeah.
Now,
12 and 13, I'm going to kind of group these together, was Stakeland from 2010 and Stakeland 2, Stakelanderer, or I don't know what it was called. They tried to do a Highlander thing, but I'm just going to call it Stakelander 2.
The Stakening?
That was it. The Stakening.
There you go.
Fucking Jesus. And that was from 2016. The
How
original
bad
film,
is it? I can figure that out.
The original film was written and directed by Jim Mickle, and the sequel was directed by Dan Burke and Robert Olson. Both films were written by Nick D'Amici, who also stars in both films. Can't say I liked either one of these things, to be honest. I liked the first one a little bit more, but for what I thought was going to be Vampires meets Road Warrior, it's really a slow kind of plodding movie. I wouldn't have minded even some more Western kind of feel to it, but in the end, it's just they both felt slow.
I remember seeing the first one. It was very much like a road movie more than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to watch that type of movie, The Road is probably better.
Yeah. Oh, The Road's great. Yeah. But yeah, for what a lot of people like the first one and not so much the second one. I'm like, I didn't see it in either one of them. I wasn't a fan of either one of these movies. And that kind of pretty much scared me off any more vampires, I think, for the rest of the month, to be honest. I was not into it. Then again, I might be forgetting something, so maybe there are some more vampires. I don't know. But not great. So, number 14 from 2016, and possibly the best one for the week, was The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Yeah.
It was directed by Troll Hunter director Andre Overdahl, and written by Ian B. Goldberg did some Once Upon a Time, and Richard Neving, I think. Can't read my own handwriting on that one. It starred Brian Cox, Emil Hirsch, and Ophelia Lovibond. You might remember her from Guardians of the Galaxy in a small role, but this is a great single location kind of film. The body of this girl is brought into a morgue, and as they start digging into her to doing the autopsy, they discover all sorts of weird secrets, like this cultish paper that they find inside her, and then winds up being the same things or inside her skin.
Yeah.
Like, it just gets creepier and creepier and creepier until they find out they've been cutting into this woman and she's not dead. Because of all this, some voodoo shit she's been doing. She's a witch, practicing witch, and we do see her murder at the opening of the film. And it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder as things escalate as they dig further into her. And she's inflicting the pain onto them. And in doing so, hopefully healing herself and to resurrect herself. And that's kind of the climax to keep that from happening as well. Really great movie for a small kind of horror movie. It was basically... Andre had seen a movie like The Conjuring. He's like, I want to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And for a low-budget, single-location horror movie, this was engaging. So good. Great performances. And I think I'm becoming a really big fan of Brian Cox.
Love Brian Cox.
Brian Cox is
I've loved him for
We last
years.
covered him in Manhunter, a much earlier role for him. So I really enjoyed this movie for a US-UK joint, so that was great. Possibly the best one for the week for me. 15, as everybody said, was Night/Curse of the Demon. Go listen to that episode. We talked about that for an entire episode, so I don't need to talk about it here. And number 16, to wrap up the week, was The Comedy of Terrors from 1963, directed by Jacques Tourneur, and based on the novel and screenplay by Richard Matheson, which goes way back to our very first episode. We've covered Richard Matheson before, starring, get this, guys, Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Boris Karloff, Joyce Jameson, and Basil Rathbone.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Right. It's okay.
We have another crossover.
I think yours is later.
Much later.
Much later. But okay, it's okay. I kind of enjoyed this movie for what it was. It's silly.
Oh, very silly.
As I keep watching older Vincent Price movies, I think I like Vincent Price more than I like his movies. Like, I think I like the idea of Vincent Price and this... the voice of him, but when I watch his movies, I'm like, hey, these aren't great.
To me, it depends on what he's doing. Like, it's when he's mean and sort of the anti-hero, I don't enjoy him.
Yeah.
But when he's sort of, there's a sensitivity to him and there's something else going on, I absolutely love Vincent Price.
Yeah, and the basic idea of this is him and Peter Lorre run moratorium.
No, they run a funeral home.
And business hasn't been good.
No, and it was his father-in-law's funeral home, which he's run into the ground because he's a drunk.
Yeah. And boy, he doesn't get along with his hot wife.
No.
But Peter Lorre does.
But to be fair, I don't think Vincent Price is like, he's just a bastard drunk. I don't think it's not even the wife's fault. He doesn't get along with anybody.
No, he's just a nasty, nasty human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, to drum up business, he has to go into business for himself, if you know what I mean.
You betcha.
Yeah. Poor Peter Lorre's kind of dragged on as the bumbling sidekick, not really wanting to be involved with this. But
well, he's getting blackmailed.
Rent's coming due on their place. Well, maybe we can kill two birds with one stone by killing the landlord.
Yep.
Who won't die.
He won't stay dead.
That's always a fun trope. The victim who won't die.
Yeah. So I'll leave it at that, but it's fun. It's not perfect. It's not great, but maybe we'll revisit it down the road because there's, I think, some good stuff to
as a concept.
remake.
There's some fun stuff going on.
Yeah, there's some neat stuff, and they kind of did that. Didn't Simon Pegg do something like with this? No, it wasn't Simon Pegg. It was. It's blank.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's another movie where it's like we got to drum up some business by killing people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like,
Burke and Hare.
Yes.
and Hare. I mean, that was based on a real thing, but they did a comedy version of Burke and Hare, and it was very similar in that regard. So that was my week too. Autopsy of Jane Doe for sure. My favorites, my least favorite were the Stakelands. Yeah, Stakeland 2, terrible.
Yeah, but so far you don't have any passionate hate ones like I did that second week. I really hated a couple ones.
Well, I mean, going into my 17, which I'll talk about later, but that was my 17 was an abort. So, but you guys are gonna have to wait until next week to find out what that was because we've already hit almost 2 hours. We're at an hour 45 or so, and I'm gonna split this up. You guys are gonna have to come back for our second half of our 31 Days of Horror next week.
It's a cliffhanger.
It's a cliffhanger. But we got a whole bunch more movies to talk about next week. If you enjoy this show and all the other episodes we do, please like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter. You can also interact with us at those places. We are at Invasion Remake on Twitter, Invasion the Remake on Facebook, and invasiontheremake@gmail.com. Please go give us a 5-star review over on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars, drop us a short review. Helps other people find this show. And, of course, tell people how to find this show. You already know because you're listening, but help other people find the show, especially if they're not using similar devices. We're in a ton of different places. iTunes, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Player FM, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Blueberry, frickin' YouTube. We are everywhere. Go find us. You have no excuses. That's it for this week, but we will be back next week with part 2 of 31 Days of Horror. Until then, I've been Jason.
I'm always Sam.
I continue to be Trish.
And we are out of here.
Congratulations, you are still alive. Most people are so ungrateful to be alive. But not you. Not anymore.